Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. This is Elektra Yao, immigration attorney. My offices are located in New York and New Jersey. And today I wanted to talk about abuse in the immigration context. We represent many foreign nationals that have suffered abuse at the hands of their U.S. citizen spouses. And they're all different types of abuse that undergo relationships that I think that a lot of times clients and even other people aren't aware of. So I want to talk about in particular one client that we have. This person is a male, and this person fell in love with an American citizen and left his whole life in his home country of Peru. And he had a business. He had friends and family who loved and supported him and cared for him. And he fell in love with a U.S. citizen and basically uprooted his life and moved to the United States. And I think that a lot of the times when we think of abuse as either physical abuse, sexual abuse, but in the immigration context, there are different types of abuses. And I want to just briefly talk about the certain types of abuses that USCIS is accustomed to seeing and approving. So let's just start off by saying, even if you are married to a U.S. citizen or have recently divorced a U.S. citizen, or your U.S. citizen spouse is not willing to sign and move forward with your immigration petition, there are solutions out there for you. And it's really critical that you speak to a licensed immigration attorney that can advise you of what your next steps are. It's not the end of your immigration journey just because your U.S. citizen spouse chooses to not move forward with your petition. You have options. It's very important to speak to a licensed professional so that you can have the full spectrum of what your potential options are to move forward and to have legal status in the United States. So a lot of the times, and I was talking about my male client, a lot of the times we think of abuse as either physical abuse, so physically touching, or sexual abuse. And there are types of psychological abuse that do not get spoken about, that aren't talked about, that sometimes clients are even afraid or embarrassed to discuss. And these types of abuse can also be called control or humiliation. So if you have a spouse, for example, who is checking your phone all the time, limiting the amount of time that you are going on the internet or using social media, or limiting the time that you want to hang out with your friends, or controlling your finances, or controlling your whereabouts, or humiliating you by stating that he or she controls your immigration status, humiliating you by making you do things that you don't want to do. All of this constitutes abuse. And I think that a lot of the times we have to, use different words so that, clients understand and you guys understand what we're talking about, that abuse is not just physical or sexual. It can also be emotional and psychological. And psychological abuse is not only, for example, name calling, but it can also be that area of controlling your life, controlling what you do, controlling your whereabouts, controlling what you can't or cannot do. And if this is happening to you, you really should seek out the help of an immigration attorney, because there are ways for you to legalize your status and continue to remain in the U.S. without your abuser. USCIS and the law recognizes these different types of abuse. And if you are in a situation like that and you're excusing it, or you don't know, or you don't think that it's abuse, it is abuse. It is abuse codified by the law, and it is abuse recognized by USCIS. So you should definitely seek out emotional and psychological support. But also know that you do have a route to legalize your status without your U.S. citizen spouse, especially if your U.S. citizen spouse is controlling or humiliating you about controlling your legal status in the country. So back to my client that we were talking about. This client, this is a sort of abuse that he was suffering. His U.S. citizen spouse would take his clothes and throw them out of the house, would repeatedly kick him out of the house, would repeatedly tell him that he's not a man because he has to depend on her for his immigration status, would repeatedly keep him out of the finances of the household. So she would basically just ask for money, and demand for money, and he would have to give it to her without really knowing what the money was being spent on. All of this, again, was recognized and is recognized as abuse by the law and USCIS, and I'm really happy to say that our client was recommended for approval. So my client will be able to remain here in the United States, even though his US citizen spouse chose to not file for his petition. So as I said, this person was abused by his wife, and abuse can be done by either male or female. It doesn't necessarily only need to be abuse from a woman to a man. It can be both. It can be both ways. And my client, we argued humiliation, we argued control, we argued dangling immigration status to control him and to continuously psychologically abuse him, emotionally abuse him, because she would kick him out and then call him and say, I love you, please forgive me. She would do this repeatedly. These psychological games really hurt and damaged my client. So as I told you, I'm happy to say that our client was recommended for approval and that he will be able to continue to remain in the U.S. in safety and legalize his status. So if you have any additional questions about abuse and what abuse means to you, or if you think you are in an abusive relationship, you should seek out the help of a psychologist. And if you're looking for how to legalize your status in the U.S., there are options for you to remain here legal without the help of your U.S. citizen spouse. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and I will be back next week.